Hey everyone, welcome to another week. I am Sarah Maslowski, your real estate agent here on the Moving to Georgia channel, and my team and I help people from all over relocate right here to Northeast Metro Atlanta area. Excited to be with you here going into this long holiday weekend. I just realized that it is Memorial Day weekend, so that tells you I have no plans this Memorial Day weekend. We've had a busy spring season here in the Metro Atlanta real estate market, and there's some really great news that I want to share with you. That is great news if you are a buyer in today's market thinking about making a move here to Metro Atlanta. And really, the first big headline for this is that out of all the clients that we've had an opportunity to help here over the last 6, 9 months, with the exception of one situation, we have not had any buyer have to pay full price for a home. We have been able to negotiate some really great, incredible deals or favorable terms for buyers so that it's a win-win. The sellers are getting their home sold, but buyers are getting some really good concessions on their contract. And we're going to dig into exactly why and how to do those negotiations that benefits you the most as the buyer. And sometimes it's not always about the price of the house. So, thank you for joining me here today. If you're joining us live, watching on the live stream or on the replay, let me know where you're watching from. Drop that in the chat. And of course, if you have any questions about the market, have any opinions, input, questions, let me know. We're going to answer those today throughout the live stream. So, hey, Carl, thanks for joining us here tonight on the live stream. It's been a while. It's been a very busy market, uh, life, all those kind of things. I always forget the spring market and just how busy it is. So, definitely looking forward to some great things. If you are local here to the Metro Atlanta market, or you're visiting this weekend, one shocking thing that just happened yesterday is that on Lake Lanier, all the U.S. Army Corps of Engineer parks that are managed by the government are shut down. And it's really crazy timing that they shut these parks down just before the Memorial Day weekend. And it's because of budget constraints and manpower. So they've now barricaded all of these day use parks that are managed by the Army Corps of Engineers. So you can't access these parks. So that's affecting public beaches and boat ramps and things like that on the lake. And yeah, and it's because of budget cuts and federal hiring freeze. So these are seasonal workers that they hire to manage these parks or, make sure they're kept clean and that sort of thing. And I guess because of the federal hiring freeze, they're not allowed to hire and they don't currently have the manpower to do this. And so here locally, it's a pretty big deal because, a lot of locals use these parks. A lot of people come from out of town to use these parks to enjoy wonderful Lake Lanier. And so it's really causing some big problems. Now, there's a lot of parks that are still open on the lake, and those are ones that are managed by the local municipalities that aren't managed by, um, the Army Corps of Engineers. But that just means that now these other parks are going to be way busier because they're the only options. And so local municipalities are working with the Army Corps of Engineers to see if they can take over locally to manage these parks to solve a need. Obviously, people are reaching out to our local congressmen and senators to see what we can do because it's definitely going to hurt people here locally and businesses and stuff like that. So that is news, and I'll keep you up to date on what happens. But that just broke yesterday. And if you're not following me on Instagram, make sure you do that because I put out a little video this morning about this so that you are staying up to date on everything that you need to know here locally. Even if you're not moving here just yet, it's always fun to kind of see what's happening here and start to dream a little bit of what it would be like to live here. All right, so let's get in and talk about this local market. And let's first just start off kind of like generally looking at the United States as a whole. So Redfin put out a study and Realtor.com put out a study that stated that many sellers are giving concessions. And in fact, this is at an all-time high compared to, sorry, I was trying to see if I could move my face out of the way so that y'all could see that full graphic. But if we go back to kind of like the beginning of the pandemic, 2018, 2019, you'll see that, close to 43% of transactions had seller concessions. And what seller concessions are is you make an offer on a house. Let's just assume the home is 500,000, and the seller is giving $10,000 towards closing cost, or you negotiate $5,000 towards closing cost. That is the seller giving concessions. And so this is a very, very favorable thing for buyers because it helps you make the home purchase more affordable. When a seller, whenever you negotiate those closing costs, that directly reduces the out-of-pocket expenses that you have to buy that house. So it just means that you're bringing $5, $10, $15,000 less to the closing table, and you get to keep that money back. Now, that money can be used towards actual closing costs, so lender fees, appraisal fees, prepaid property taxes, all of those things. Or it could also be used for buying down the interest rate, which is a huge thing in today's market. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that to make sure you understand and negotiate the very best deal possible for you. So the fact that we are at almost an all-time high over the past couple of years, this is a huge indicator that buyers are in a better position in today's market than they have been in years. If we go back and look at 2020, 2021, 2022, that was at an all-time low of sellers giving concessions. In majority of the places across the country, there was huge buyer demand, not enough houses for sale, and sellers could essentially just say that and demand anything that they wanted in terms of a contract, and buyers were offering way over asking price, waiving contingencies, and just about every single uh, offer was, multiple offers, sometimes 10 plus offers that buyers were competing against. So this is great, great, great news for buyers in today's market. And this is a strong indication that we're moving more back towards that balanced market, which is what we desperately need. So great question, Victor. Let me pop this up for y'all. Yes. So this right now is showing a national trend, and we're going to see what's happening specifically in the metro Atlanta market. So this is nationally from a report that Redfin did. And so let's take a look a little bit at some metro markets, including the Atlanta area. So this chart's a little bit hard to see, but we're going to get into some easier numbers here. But this ranks the top metro areas where sellers are giving the largest concessions. And so you can see there that Atlanta is ranked the third biggest metro where sellers are giving the most amount in concessions. So this is great, great news for buyers in terms of the fact that we're able to negotiate more and create more favorable terms. And you can see that the gray is 2024, the red is 2025. So in just about every market, 2025 is pacing ahead of what we were in 2024. And that's just indicative of it is a tougher real estate market right now than what it has been in the past. So if we look specifically here in Atlanta, looking at Q1 of 2025, and this is the metro Atlanta area. So when they're referring to Atlanta, they're also considering the suburbs of Atlanta, and they're pulling that data from that metro area. So in Q1 of this year, 61% of homes that were sold had seller concessions. And so what this means is that if you're a buyer, unless you are in a rare pocket, or unless it's a very, very special unicorn of a house, let's say that it's priced amazingly, it's in great condition, it is a magazine worthy home where you can just walk in and you're not having to do anything, essentially like the best house in the neighborhood for a great price. Obviously, in those situations, a seller probably has a lot of demand and they're not having to give concessions. So in that instance, less likely to have to give anything. I recently listed a home in the Alpharetta market, and it was a little bit of a unicorn. It had a finished basement with an in-law suite on a cul-de-sac, great price point, and we had multiple offers, 5 offers, all over asking. And so, obviously, in that situation, a seller did not have to give any concessions or negotiate any concessions. But that is more so a rarity in today's market. And yet, it still can happen in certain pockets. Um, I know in places like Chicago, in the suburbs of Chicago, the market is still incredibly hot with multiple offers. So it all just kind of depends on where you're looking to buy. But here in the metro Atlanta area, fantastic news. And I've personally seen this play out with just about every single one of my clients over the past 9 months or so, where we've been able to negotiate seller concessions. So if you're just joining us, the live stream, welcome. Let me know where you're watching from. Of course, if you have any questions, let me know. Any comments, feedback, concerns, opinions. I would love for you to join in on the conversation and let me know your thoughts as well. So one thing that I think is surprising is not only do we have sellers giving concessions, but we also have a ton of fallout in the market right now. And realtor speak, what that fallout means is that buyer contracts are falling through. So a home is going under contract, a buyer gets into that contract, and then at some point they decide, oh, this isn't for me, or something is happening. And we tend to see more buyer contracts fall through when we have a more balanced market or when things are kind of shifting in a buyer's favor. And there's several reasons why this happens. It can be because of the condition of the house. Here in Georgia, during our due diligence inspection period, you can back out and terminate that contract for any reason during that time period. It most often happens because of the condition of the home. Maybe you couldn't negotiate repairs with the seller, or maybe some big expensive repair was uncovered during that inspection. So a buyer can terminate for that reason. But one thing that I'm noticing in this market that we're experiencing right now is that buyers are becoming a lot more, I wouldn't say picky, but stringent on what they expect a seller to do. And this is a different market for sellers than what it has been the past, 3 to 5 years, where a seller could just essentially put their home on the market and not have to do any prep work. Buyers today have more options, they have more choices. And so we like to say that the real estate market is a beauty contest. You have got to be the prettiest house on the block with the best price, or you need to be the very best price, and you can be the ugliest house, but it's got to be a good price where someone can come in and make that cosmetic improvements. Uh, so buyers they have a lot more options. So as a seller, there's a lot more competition. So we want to make sure that your house is very, very well prepared and presented for the market. So that means doing some repairs prior to going on the market, making sure that the exterior of your house looks really good, making sure that you don't have a bunch of crazy paint colors inside. If you have a lot of dated fixtures and a lot of dated paint colors in your house, the advice for this market would be, yes, we want to get those painted and we wanted to change those fixtures so that we can appeal to the most amount of buyers. In my opinion, and what I hear from other agents here in the market, is buyers today, they don't want to go in and have to fix anything, even if it's little cosmetic things in a house. They don't want to have to make those changes. They want to be able to walk in to a move-in ready house. So you got to keep in mind too that for the most part, buyers are paying a lot more of their percentage of income for a house in today's market than what they have been. So oftentimes I hear like, well, back in my day when I bought my first house, I didn't mind going in there and changing some paint and carpet and doing all these things. Yes, that may be true, but you got to keep in mind, as a percentage of income, buyers are spending a lot more today for that house. And so their disposable income, or what they have to reinvest back into the house, is a lot less. So just keep that in mind if you're positioning yourself as a seller, or if you're thinking about, selling and making a move to a different house, that you do really need to make sure that your home is well prepared for the market. So that's one reason that we're seeing a lot of fall through in contracts. The second reason that we're seeing a lot of fall through in contracts is because of today's mortgage rates. Now, If you haven't looked at mortgage rates lately, or if you're not exactly in the market to buy a home right now and you haven't been paying close attention to mortgage rates, they have been up and down across the board here over the past 6 to 8 weeks, sometimes dramatically. So right now we're seeing interest rates kind of hover above 7%. Now, the good news is that we are expecting to see mortgage rates eventually come down. So if we look at, let's see here, if we look at mortgage rate projections in 2025, looking at economists from these different boards and stuff like this, they're eventually predicting that we're going to get back down around 6.5%. I do not believe this. I don't think we're going to get there until 2026. I think we're in for a really still bumpy, minimal decrease in interest rates. And I say this because if you go back and you've been watching my videos on the channel, we've been talking about interest rates coming down for it feels like a year. And it has very, very minimally came down. And of course, a new administration, tariff, inflation policies, all of these things are introducing a lot of market uncertainty into what is going on, and it makes it kind of difficult to accurately predict what's going to happen. So um, that is just something to keep in mind. So because of these mortgage rates being so high, buyers, if they are not really well qualified or pre-qualified and partnered with a really great agent, what's happening is agents are going out showing buyers houses, putting them under contract, then they get actually hard numbers from their lender once the lender gets a copy of that contract, and they give them that initial closing disclosure. And for the first time, they're seeing their principal and interest plus their homeowner's insurance plus their mortgage insurance if they need mortgage insurance premium plus property taxes plus any HOA dues. And then all of a sudden, the numbers that they ran on that calculator is a lot higher than what they actually thought it was going to be. And they're looking at that and they're saying, oh shit, that's not what we had in our budget. Let's back out of this contract. So you're seeing a ton of that. So it's so important to make sure that you are um, not only qualified, but you've actually seen the actual lender numbers of what that monthly payment will be. And so that's why it's really, really important to make sure you're partnered with a really great lender. It's something that I make sure that all of my clients have seen prior to us going out and looking at houses, because I want to make sure that you feel very comfortable with the price point and what that actual monthly payment number is going to look like. Time and time again, I get clients who have sometimes been pre-approved prior to working with me, and they say, yeah, we're pre-approved up to 650. We think we want to be around 625. Fantastic. Have you actually seen what that number looks like monthly? And they're like, no. So I say, okay, well, let's make sure we're comfortable with that number. And if you're not comfortable with that number, what do you want that monthly payment to be? And then let's translate that into what the actual house price needs to be in order to make sure that we can achieve that monthly number. So it's a huge reason why we're seeing so much fallout in real estate transactions right now. So on the flip side, it can be a good thing from a buyer that if you're a serious buyer out there in today's market, let's say that you had your eye on a house and it went under contract, you do have the ability to be a backup offer. And so because 1 out of every 5 contracts are falling through on homes right now, if you're a backup offer and the seller has accepted that backup offer, what that means is that as soon as that buyer backs out of that contract, you are immediately under contract on that home. So it's great to be a backup offer, and it's great to kind of keep your eye on that house, make sure that you're working with a great agent that is going to check in with that agent and say, hey, my buyers really love this house. How's your current contract going? Is this going to work out? Let me know at the first hint of something going wrong. So there can be some great opportunity if you find yourself and you're like, dang it, I missed out on that house or it just went pending. No, we can 20% of the time, maybe you're going to get that house and it's not going to be a missed opportunity. So great news for buyers. Now let's take a look at some local data when it comes to like how many homes are on the market, and I'm going to share some information with you on that. But before we do that, if you're just joining us, welcome. Let me know if you have any questions. I would love to answer that for you. Or if you have any opinions of what you're currently seeing in the market, I'd love to get your insight. Maybe you're looking to move from a different market and you're experiencing different things in that market than what we're experiencing here in the metro Atlanta area. Uh, Feel free to let me know. Okay, I am going to share my screen. Okay, so this is the back end of our MLS system. And I want to let's take a look at the greater metro Atlanta area. Here we have our average sales price. You can see that it is holding steady at 429. It's kind of flat year over year. And I'm pretty much seeing this with most homes in the metro Atlanta area. But if we go look at month supply, okay, this is why we're seeing such good news for buyers in today's market is that our month supply is at 4.2. If we go back to 2 years ago, April, 2 years ago, we were at half the amount of supply. And so, what this means in layman's terms, when we say that the month supply is 4 months, it means that if no other buyers were to enter into the market today, and just the current buyers who are actively looking today ended up needing to buy a house and they had to buy a house, it would take 4 months for the current amount of homes to get bought up. So that means is that we have a healthy amount of houses out there and a healthy amount of buyers, but right now it's taking a lot more time for the amount of buyers to come into the market to buy up the inventory. Whereas April 2 years ago, we had just under 2 months supply, so almost half the amount of supply that we have today, which means that we were much more in sellers market territory where sellers could, again, they had the upper hand for most part in a lot of negotiations. So uh, technically, a balanced market is 6 months. And they say a balanced market when there's an even number of buyers and sellers. I would argue that we're in that balanced market territory right now at that 4 month supply. So, again, this is really great news for buyers because this means that you have one more inventory to choose from. You're not coming into town and looking and being like, great, there's only 5 houses that fit what I'm looking for, and I need to pick from one of these 5. If you are in a situation where you have to move to the area, you are, seeing 20, 30 plus homes that match your criteria, and maybe you have 12 ones that you really want to go see, and then 4 really good options. So again, great news for buyers in today's market in terms of what you can expect to see here. Just gives you a little bit more negotiation power. And of course, this market supply is going to change based on where and what area we're looking at. So let's just kind of compare Alpharetta to Cumming to, let's say, Gainesville. That's a good area to compare. Um, okay, so not surprising, Alpharetta has the lowest amount months of supply of inventory, 3.3. That tracks because Alpharetta is a really hot real estate market here in the Metro Atlanta. Um, Cumming is in second place with 4.3, and then Gainesville is at 4.7. So, and again, that really tracks with data migration and where people are moving and demand and such as that. So that is, again, great news for buyers in the sense that you have more options and we can negotiate more for you. All right. There was something else I was going to say. I don't remember. Um, but again, the great thing for buyers is that you have a lot more power than what you think. You have a ton of power right now when it comes to new construction homes. So new construction builders is that those are probably like the best deals on the market right now. And the reason that they're the best deal on the market is builders want to get these houses sold. They have to sell them. They don't want to sit on this inventory. And the closer that home gets to being complete, the higher that cost, or it's eating into the profit of the builder, the longer they have to hold on to it and carry those carrying costs. So things that we're seeing right now with builders: cutting prices of the house, giving money towards closing costs. And when I say giving, in a lot of instances, $10,000, $15,000 towards closing costs. And in a lot of instances, they're also pairing that aggressive closing cost incentive with a permanent rate buy down incentive. And so this is a very, very good scenario for buyers, because not only do you get advantage of keeping more money in your pocket at closing because you don't have to pay all those closing costs, but you also get a really great rate. And so oftentimes we're seeing those permanent rates come in at like 5.5%. If you compare a 5.5% mortgage rate with a 7% mortgage rate for a resale house, uh, cost being equal, you're going to see a significant savings on that new construction home. Another huge perk of new construction is the fact that, well, everything's new, right? So you don't have to worry about the roof or the HVAC system. It's covered under warranty. You're the first person living in that house. So there's a lot of huge advantages that come with new construction. Recently had some clients who moved here, and in our strategy session we were talking, and I was like, hey, how long are you planning on being here in the area? Because he was here for work. And he said, we think we're going to be here for about 3 to 5 years. And so they had some specific needs of what they wanted. We were considering looking at resale homes, and they didn't really quite have new construction on their radar. And the more we started looking at or resale homes, and to get in the area that they wanted with the size of home that they wanted, a lot of the houses needed a lot of cosmetic work. Also, when you're looking at homes that are 15 plus years old, we may be lucky and find a house that has like a newer roof, or maybe a new HVAC system, maybe a newer hot water heater, but it's really hard to put all three of those together. Also, here in Georgia, a lot of our houses, especially with 2 stories, have two air conditioning units. So maybe one has been replaced, but the other is still original, and you have an original roof. All of that, when you kind of look at what your potential cost of home ownership is over that next 3 to 5 years, any one of those things could need to be replaced. And that's a significant amount of money when it comes to uh, home ownership maintenance items that just have to get done. So, in looking at these things, then it kind of became a conversation of, hey, would you be willing to give up maybe that bigger backyard if we had a more affordable option and everything was brand new? Plus, when you go to sell in, let's say, 5 years, you're looking at a situation where you're likely not going to have to do anything to that house. You don't have to worry about the HVAC system. You don't have to worry about replacing the roof because, well, it's a brand new house and everything's only going to be 5 years old. Whereas with a resale home, even if those things may not have been an issue for you during ownership, it's going to be even harder to get it sold when those things have that increased age to deal with. So when we went and looked at new construction options, uh, even though we paid a little bit more for the house in the actual, bottom dollar, it ended up being cheaper because we had a better interest rate and they got to keep more money in their pocket at closing. So lots of great opportunity for you right now, especially with new construction and the incentives and rates that the builders are offering. It is incredibly hard for a resale home to compete with that. Of course, we've got some trade-offs here, right? So we have likely the yard's going to be a lot smaller. You're not going to have trees in your yard. You're going to have one tree that recently got planted and it's a little baby 1-year-old tree. You're going to have to invest a little bit of money into some landscaping and blinds and things like that into the house to kind of put those final home ownership touches on the home. But you've got some other really great positive trade-offs as well. So I'm curious what you think. Have you been exploring any new construction homes? And if so, are you seeing some similar aggressive incentives that builders are offering in your area, or maybe you're here looking in the metro Atlanta area? Occasionally, we see a couple of builders that aren't offering those crazy good incentives, and usually it's because there's really high demand for the neighborhood. But for the most part, they are going to give you really good deals that are hard to pass up. So those are things that if you're thinking about making a move here and you want to look into what taking advantage of that would look like, feel free to reach out to me. You can find my information below this pinned or information below this video. There's a description there that'll have that information for you. All right. Y'all have been very quiet tonight, and I'm dying to hear your questions or thoughts that you may have on what's going on in the real estate market. So please drop those in the comments. Let me give you my opinion or thoughts on that and kind of see how that aligns with what you think. But that's definitely something to consider. Now, when we look at the market overall and we think about why are we in this situation? And sometimes I have conversations with clients and they think, okay, well, we're having sellers give concessions. We have a little bit more of a balanced market. Why haven't prices really come down a whole lot? And that is a great question. And the reason that we don't have prices come down very much at all is because we still have a relatively healthy amount of homes for sale and buyers that want to buy. It's not until we get a huge amount of supply of homes for sale and a less buyers are we going to have that downward pressure on pricing and see homes actually decrease in value. In fact, we overall historically don't have enough homes for sale, or we don't really have enough homes constructed historically over time. So, let's see here. Yeah. So, if we look at the amount of homes that have been built over time, um, you see back in this didn't go back far enough, but in 2013, 2015, 16, there were way more homes available than what buyers wanted to buy. But if we look at, historically over the past, what is that, 7 years, um, we have a huge housing deficit, and these are in the thousands, meaning that if those homes would have been available during those years, we would have met the demand for buyers uh, to buy those houses. And another thing that kind of goes hand in hand with this is the amount of builders that are building houses. Um, I don't have the graphic for it, but if we look at the amount of homes builders have built historically, we had a drastic cutoff of home builders building houses after the housing market crash in 2006, 7, 8. A ton of builders went under, went out of business, got out of the business permanently. Some would argue for good reason, and maybe they shouldn't return. But it took out a lot of kind of like these smaller mom and pop one-off builders that maybe built, 5 to 10 houses per year, maybe your medium-sized builders, and because the barriers to entry with um, mortgage requirements and lender requirements actually giving them money to develop these neighborhoods and homes and having access to that capital was so difficult to get. It caused a lot of these builders that were building homes prior to 2008 just to permanently get out of the business and say this is way too hard. So what that left was just medium-sized builders and these giant huge national builders building homes. Well, after the housing market crash, those people that were left were kind of shell shocked after the housing market crash and we're like, we're going to be way more conservative going forward. And that's still playing out to this day. We still have drastically we're under building the amount of homes for the actual demand that we have and the population growth that we have for today's numbers. So it's going to take tens of years to catch up, and we need builders to build at a higher pace. And you might be thinking, Sarah, I drive around Metro Atlanta and I see new construction developments happening everywhere, and I see apartment construction happening everywhere. And that is true. And yet it's still hard to believe that overall we still have a housing deficit shortage. And so that is a big reason as to why we're putting or we don't have that downward pressure on home prices, which would we desperately would be grateful for. And at the same time, any bump in interest rates down or home prices down will just create a surge of more buyers, which then puts upward pressure on home prices. And, it's just a whole big old mess. Um, if anybody has the answer, let me know and I'll suggest it to people higher up. Um, One interesting thing that I did want to share with you is let's see here. One thing that has been happening here in the metro Atlanta area, and I don't know if this is happening where you are, I would love to know. So let me know in the comments, is especially here, like in Hall County and Dawson County, we've seen a number of these build to rent communities pop up. And so the first build to rent community is popping up in Gwinnett. And what this is a new construction builder who comes in and builds single family homes. So in this instance, the builder is going to build 150 single family homes and townhomes. And they aren't building them because they want to turn around and sell them. They're building them strictly for rental properties. And so this will always be a rental property project. And the builder's goal is to never sell these to the actual individuals. It's not like they're renting to then use part of the equity and the rent to then own the home. No, these companies are just building them to permanently hold on to them and rent them out. And they're institutional landlords, and that's a great name for it. And collectively, these institutional landlords, such as Imitation Homes and America's Homes for Rent, own thousands of single family homes. We got a huge surge of these um, institutional landlords as a result of the pandemic. They came in with their cash and just bought up all kinds of homes and properties. Um, it says the Atlanta metro area ranked third in the US for build to rent completions in 2023. And so here's what's important for you when it comes to this. And on the could y'all see that? Hopefully. No. Now you can see it. Sorry about that. So this is an article in the Atlanta Business Journal talking about this new build to rent community, Harmon Cedar Run, the first one in Gwinnett. So the important thing to know about this development is that, or how it really impacts you as a potential buyer, is one, this is land that they're building rental homes on, which could have been land that they built a single family home on to sell. The other thing that makes this really difficult is that, in my opinion, this is just widening the gap between the dream of American home ownership. Because these companies are building these single family homes to rent, to me, it's indicative of the market in the future knows that people don't necessarily want to rent an apartment, but they do want a single family home. There's going to be a large portion of the population that's never going to be able to afford to buy their own home. And this is the next best option. This pains me. It also pains me that so many of these homes were bought up during the pandemic to turn into rental houses because these were often in price points that were single family or first time home buyer price points. So prices of, back then 250, 300,000. And now in a lot of these areas in the metro Atlanta, to buy a decent-ish single family home where you don't have to do a ton of, cosmetic work, you're looking at, around 350, in between 350 and 400. You can find homes below 350, but you're going to have to put or be willing to put some sweat equity into those homes or go a little bit further out to get that. And so, you were able to buy a house 5 years ago, 200,000, and that is never going to happen again. So you couple that with interest rates where they are, Who knows when or if they'll ever kind of come back down. Historically, 7%, 6.5% is still pretty good when we look at, a 20-year average. So the home price itself is never going to get less expensive, which means the entry level is going to keep getting higher and higher and higher. And the longer first-time home buyers delay getting into the market, the more expensive it's going to get and the further behind. And I feel like just, these single family built to rent opportunities are big, large investment companies knowing that, yeah, these people aren't ever going to be able to buy and they need a solution because they don't want to rent an apartment. So let's give them a single family home to rent for the rest of their life. OTR Monk, are these built to rent neighborhoods permanently rentals or can they be sold in the future? No, they are permanently rentals. And so this first popped up in the Gainesville, Hall County area 4 years ago. I was driving down a road that I often go down to commute to my office, and I saw this nice neighborhood being built. And I'm like, oh, great. More inventory. I wonder what the price point's going to be. I kept waiting for the sign to pop up. And then I did see the sign pop up, and it was like single family homes for rent. And I was like, what the heck is this? And yeah, so we have a lot of these communities being built around here, brand new homes. Again, it's great for the renter in terms that it provides a solution, but long term, it's not good if your ultimate goal is to be able to afford and want to buy a single family home because it's in direct competition um, with each other and it's taking away that opportunity. Great question. Carl asked, are there any rent to own homes in Georgia? That is incredibly hard to find. You can find some owner self-financed rent-to-own properties. They're gonna charge quite a bit to do that or make it very, very not good for the actual buyer. A better option that I have seen for buyers in this situation are there are several mortgage companies that have created some really good programs where they will go in and buy the house for you, and then you essentially are kind of renting from this lending company with the set terms in the contract of when that transitions over to a full mortgage, so that you're saving for your down payment and your monthly rental payments to the lender or the company that owns the home. And so in my opinion, that's a much better, easier, cleaner way to go about pursuing kind of like a rent to own type situation. So that's a great question. Um, so yeah. Well, if you have any questions, let me know. You can drop those in the comments. Another thing, maybe I didn't pop that up. Sorry, looking at my tabs on the back end. Was trying to find, anyways. Uh, one cool thing, if you are a fan of food like I am, um, Tupelo Honey is a really fantastic restaurant that just opened up in Gainesville. And this is a national, not national change, but they're Southern regionally. I think they were initially started out of Asheville and they have a few different locations throughout the Southeast. They used to have one in Georgia and it closed a long time ago. So this is the uh, first Georgia location that has opened up and it is a fantastic restaurant. So I love food, love to eat, and it's more kind of like upscale Southern cuisine. They're open for brunch, lunch, and dinner, but they have some really amazing, fantastic food. I live in Gainesville, and I think Gainesville has gotten really great over the past couple of years with stores and developments and revitalization of the downtown area. But the one thing that we're kind of catching up on, that we need to catch up on, is having more locally owned restaurants that are not national chains. So this is a perfect addition to the area where we have a little bit more variety in the local restaurants that we have that we can check out and support and have, really good, unique meals. I feel like a lot of the other towns here in the metro Atlanta area have some amazing restaurants that are locally owned, Alpharetta has every type of cuisine that you could want, and great restaurants, endless amount of options to choose from. Obviously, that's a much bigger area, but super excited about some of the things that are coming here in the area and being developed. So, all right. Well, if you're not already following the channel, please make sure that you're subscribed. We put out videos every single Monday about what it's like living here in the Metro Atlanta. If you have an idea for a video, or if there's something that you want a video on, let me know. We are doing more videos out and about in person to try to put boots on the ground and show you what that's like here, and not just, in studio. So let me know if you have any ideas for videos, or burning questions that you want answered with a video. We'll make sure to get those to you. But like and subscribe so that you can get notified every time we put out that video. We're here on the live stream twice a month answering your questions live. And if you're not following me on Instagram, make sure you jump over there and follow, especially if you're a local. We post just about every single day on up-to-date stuff that's going on here in the area, new businesses, restaurants, developments, news that you need to know. So make sure you're following me there. Thank you so much for joining us tonight on the live stream. I will see you on the next video that drops this Monday on Memorial Day weekend. So I hope you'll have a really great, fantastic holiday. Thanks for joining me.